So yesterday we learned about the machlokes Rav Meir and the Chachamim, if it's possible to be makna something to an eved, almanas she'ein l'rabbi reshus bo. It all stemmed from our Mishnah that says that according to Rav Meir, the yitzia of kesef by an eved knaini could only be done al yidei acher, while the Rabbanan said the yitzia of kesef can even be done al yidei atzmai. The eved himself can bail himself out. The machlokes was totally in whether or not it's possible for an eved to have a kinyan in anything without his adon's grasp on it. And we had two versions of the machlokes. The first version of the machlokes was, was Reb Sheshes. Reb Sheshes said that the way you would be able to have a kinyan for an eved without the adon having a shus on it is if the person that gave it to the eved said almanas she'ein l'rabbi reshus bo, and that's where there was a machlokes. However, Rabbi Lozer said that everybody would agree merely saying a t'nai when you give an eved an object or as a gift and saying almanas she'ein l'rabbi reshus bo doesn't work, because the moment you give it to him, the adon also is claiming. But where the Rabbanan say it's possible to make a carve out where the eved has control over something, but the adon doesn't get any kinyan in it, is if someone said almanas she'teitze boy l'cherus, which really means that I'm not really giving it to the eved. I'm only giving it to the eved legabi, using it to give to his adon to go l'cherus. But the eved doesn't really have a kinyan in it to be able to keep it. And since the eved can't really keep it, you haven't given it enough to the eved. It's not belonging enough to the eved that his adon will have a grasp on. So based on this machlokes that we've discussed, you have Meir and the Rabbanan, where Meir says an eved cannot have a kinyan in anything without his adon, and the Rabbanan say it's possible. So on the last line of the Gemara, on the last line of the Chav Gimel Amud Beis, V'rami de Rav Meir ad Rav Meir, V'rami de Rabbanan ad Rabbanan. We're going to now find a brisa where Rav Meir and the Rabbanan take the opposite position from what they have here in the shaila of Yesh Kinyan Le'eved L'Rab. The Tanya we learned in the brisa. Now we could turn on to Daf Chav Daled Amud Aleph. If a woman wants to be poida ma'aser sheni, so we know the halacha is for a person to be poida their own ma'aser sheni, they have to add 1/5 to it. So if it's $100 worth of ma'aser sheni that they're redeeming because they want to take the cash up to Yerushalayim and not have to actually transport all their pairs, if it's $100 worth of ma'aser sheni that they're redeeming, they have to redeem it with $120. Now, whose ma'aser sheni are we discussing here? We're discussing ma'aser sheni that grew in the field of her husband, and she is going to be redeeming the payers ma'aser sheni, I guess, on behalf of her husband. So the Brasha says a woman cannot be paid the ma'aser sheni without adding the 20%, because she has a status of her husband. She's doing it on behalf of her husband. However, Reb Shimon ben Elazar Omer Mishum Reb Meir. So here we see the machlokes Reb Meir. Tanakama is that isha poida ma'aser sheni b'loichem. In fact, a woman can be poida ma'aser sheni without a chimish. Rashi explains the lavdi dahu. This ma'aser sheni of her husband does not belong to her. So it's as if it's a foreigner is redeeming that ma'aser sheni, and therefore ve'ein ma'asifin chimish al pinyin ma'asers v'kdeshus alabaylim. Only if the owner is poida their ma'aser sheni is there a chiyuv to pay the extra 20%. She's considered another person, like her baal, therefore she does not add the 20%. Hechidami. So let's try to understand exactly what is happening with this shaila. If she's taking her husband's money, and with that money, she's redeeming meiser that belonged to her father, to her husband, well, then of course she should have to pay the extra 20%. There's no way Reb Shimon ben Elazar, in the name of Reb Meir, can argue on that, because shlichu say the Baal Kavda. She's just doing this for her husband. So that cannot be the case. We must be discussing her own money being paid in the meiser of her husband. On that fact, that doesn't work either, because ish amar achmana v'loy isha. And Rashi tells us, ish amar achmana. Well, first of all, Rashi explains, how did she have her own zuzim? Zuzay dida, the nichse malug. It was money of nichse malug, so that's where the money belonged to her. U'maiser didei, which was from his field, as we're working with now. That doesn't work, because ish amar achmana v'loy isha, it says ish mimaisroi amar achmana v'loy isha mimaiser baila, the isha ka'achadam. Now the problem with this pshat is, why do we need a special mute for ish amar achmana v'loy isha? It's not really about that. It's because the money belongs to her, and the field and the payers belong to her husband. So it's dafka. The limit is dafka, the person being paid. That's the one who pays the extra 20%. But she's like a different person, because she's not using her husband's money; she's using her own money. So Tosfos has this kasha on Rashi. Why do we need a new thing of ish v'lo isha? It has nothing to do with ish v'lo isha. It's because the isha ka'achadam. She's another person than any other person, even a male, redeeming ma'aseh sheni of somebody else wouldn't that 20%. So I just want to sneak into Tosfos. So Tosfos asks, Rashi learns that the zuzay dida of her nichse maluk and ma'aser didei from his fields. So Frekter by the Tam, the kosher of the Tam, it has nothing to do with the fact that she's a wife, she's a woman. So Tosfos doesn't like Rashi for this reason. The nearer Rabbeinu Tam, the Goras elabezuze dida umaiser dida. This step of the Gemara is assuming that she is redeeming her own meiser with her own money. V'hacha perushoi ish amar achmana the moshev chaimish al maisroi v'loy isha afilu bezuze dida umaiser dida. So that's a massive chiddush that Tosfos is now saying, that a woman who is being paid, even her own meiser, will not have to add a chaimish because of this extra limud of ish v'lo isha. Okay, so let's go weiter. So Zok the head of the Gemara. So what is it? El Olav. We are forced to say that where is the Reb Meir and the Chachamim arguing in this case of Ma'aser Sheni? Is Olav ki hagadno the aknila achar mona. What must have occurred was a third party gave the woman a mona, the Omer law, and told her almanash shetifti boy es a meiser. It must be that someone came, gave this woman money almanash shetifti boy es a meiser, which is the exact parallel to the case we said earlier, when someone gave an eved money almanas that you should be paid to yourself from your Adon with that money. And what did we have on Amud Beis? Where Meir held it doesn't work, and the Chachamim said it did work. Well, let's have a look who holds what here. So the Tanakama says, Ein isha paidem sheni b'loy chaimish, meaning it's considered the husband's money. The moment she received that money from the third party, it's considered her husband's money, and therefore, Ein isha paidem sheni b'loy chaimish. We look at it like she's doing the shlichus of her husband, and therefore she has to have 20%. And Reb Meir says, Isha paidem sheni b'loy chaimish. Why? Because we'll say it does become her money, and since it does become her money, it's an acher, and therefore it doesn't have 20%. Well, this is exactly the opposite of the positions that they took a moment ago. This is exactly the opposite of what they said earlier. Let's see Rashi. Almanash shetifti boy. ish achar livtois beloy chaimish. Someone gave the wife money, almanas, that she should be poida, and she should be considered like a third party, legabe being poida, and therefore she shouldn't have to add the 20%. So what is the machlik? Shabon and Savri, Kiyamur Lakni, with the moment he said, be koined, kanale batla, her husband is koined. It doesn't accomplish anything. That means the money that she's holding already belongs to her husband, and she's being paid her husband's meiser sheni, with her husband's money, and therefore it's ishmi meiseroi karinebe, and therefore he has to add 20%. Meir's over l'dida gufa lo'aknula ella lahachi shetekish acher liftosh b'lochayim. She doesn't have a full kinyan in it that would automatically transfer to her husband. She only owns it legabe being koida, and therefore she's not koida ben ganzen, and therefore her husband is not going to get a part of it. So at the end of the day, they've taken exactly the opposite positions from what they took legabe and evet being koida without his rab, without his odin having rishuspa.
If it comes from the word ish, why don't we say even stamazoi? Maybe a woman that has money, right? She's single, she's a grisha, she's whatever. Why can't it be stam? A lady, I don't know why it's exactly but Hashem says a man that has to and a lady doesn't. But what's happens as a mind when she's paid to someone else?
Are you asking me why the Brisa assumes that we're talking about a husband and a wife here? Maybe it's speaking about strangers?
Yeah. Not strangers, herself. A lady is a single, a lady is a Grisha Almuna, and she wants to do it on her own thing.
And say the machlokes is bichlal about the halach of ish omer rachmana v'lo isha.
Yeah, that's what says it.
It must be that the at least the way Tosfos is learning, the Gemara holds as a pashtus that nobody would argue about, and everybody holds because of ish omer rachmana v'lo isha. Everybody knows there's no machlokes about it that a woman doesn't pay 20%. So if that was the case, Daf Mefishtain, how do you understand the Tanakama? So that's why the Gemara is forced to say it's this unusual case.
Okay.
So Amar Abaye, Zokt Abaye, you know what? It's very easy, just flip it around. Whatever Reb Meir Shita, whatever is quoted from this brisa from Reb Meir, we'll say is the Rabbana. And whatever was quoted in this brisa from the Rabbana, we'll say is Reb Meir. Rav Amarna, we have a good shot on this brisa. No need to be epoch. Rav Amar lo'olam loy sepoch. The hacha here we're dealing with an entirely different shayla. It's b'maiser the asam beinosha skina. We're not talking about meiser that grew in the husband's field and therefore it's his meiser. No, what happened is this is meiser that grew in the field of her father, and then they harvested, and now they have a whole bunch of tvua, and the father was mafresh meiser sheni, and then he died. So what happened to that? She yarshins it, but the question is when she yarshins it, does he get it as well? Does she even yarshin it? So let's see what the case is. Rashi, the Aisimi Beinosha, Shemes Avia, her father died. V'hoya loy meiser sheni, and the father had meiser sheni. V'yarashta she yarshin it, imshar nechasim, along with the other assets that her father had. V'yerusha abola la'achamikan nichsem elukein. Anytime a woman yarshin something after she's married, that has a status of nichsem elug. That means is whatever she yarshins they'll sell, and they'll buy with the money a field, and what the field produces the husband will get, but the keren remains belonging to her. So nichsem elukein to Rashi v'yilakach ben karka hu eichel peres. So why is that significant? How does that impact our shayla? Reb Meir l'tamei da'amar meiser mammon hektishu. You know why Reb Meir holds that you don't have to add a chaimish? is because the moment is the miser is moment hektish, the Baal is not koinit. Zokt Rashi, Vermelu Tamei Damar the commander per pays. Miser moment gavayahu. Miser doesn't really belong to us. Miser belongs to the Rebbeinu Shalom. And therefore, when someone's eating miser, it's as if the Rebbeinu Shalom is hosting him and feeding him. Hilchach, therefore, Einoi Kishar Nechosim Limekanya Baal Bitakanta the Takan Rabbanon Paris Labal. This is not like other Nichsim Alug, where the Torah said, or the Rabbanon were Misakin, that the Baal gets the Paris. No, because this is not her asset. This is an asset that's Shulchan Gavoya. Hilchach Lezachi Bey. Therefore, the husband was never koinit. The Chiparkala was used the Baal, and speaking where she used her husband's money. Lavmi Maisroihu, the Zuzah the Chadu Maishadah. So here it's speaking, Zok to Gemara, Zok to Rava, where she used his money. The whole kasha was if she's using his money to be paid his Meiser Sheni, she should have to add 20%. No, because this is not his Meiser Sheni. This Meiser Sheni belongs to the Shulchan Gavoya. It's a Mammon Hektish, and that's why Reb Meir says the woman does not have to add a chaymish. For Rabbanan l'taymayu, the army Mammon Hedjit. Rabbanan hold that Meiser Sheni belongs fully to its owner. As Rashi says, Mammon Hedjit, the Chayla Alei, the Kanta de Rabbanan, the Kanta de Rabbanan is Chal on this Meiser Sheni. Paris Labal Kishar Nichsim Alug. The Paris belong to the Baal, like every other Nichsim Alug that they have full ownership of. Chivin de Bezuz the Baal Parka Boy Chayim. Since this woman is being paid her husband's Meiser Sheni, her husband's money, of course, she has to have a chaymish. So this machlokes no longer has anything to do with if an isha could have a kinyan in the chasim without her husband, because this is a completely different shaila. The shaila here is Meiser Sheni that came down through Yerusha, through Nichsim Elug. Is that considered his or hers?
That's why the Torah says, and that's why the Torah says here, ish v'lo issue that got Yerisha already mastered it.
I don't know if I don't think there's any special pasuk by Meiser to address this scenario. Why should you need a pasuk?
If a person stamazoi would yashin his father's a man would yashin his father's nechusim and it came there Master Shiny, right? Would he also have the same thing, or only because it's a woman?
I think even if he was yashing his father's, why would there be a difference?
Because it says here,
it's Mammon Gavoya. Huh? It's Mammon Gavoya. I was thinking to myself as well. This same halacha should be even if it was his father.
That what we're thinking. But the words from Rashi, you see the last Shmuel line. So be'etzim the field and the regular pirates it's only the nuance of not yashning that part because that's moment of value. That's what you learn from Ishvila Isha. I'm not
sure. You're inserting this new thing of Ishvila Isha, but that doesn't say that anymore.
Because it says in Rashi, if not,
Rashi doesn't say that we're using the limud of Ishvila.
Rashi says it has a shaykhis with the tkunz chachomim of Baal Moilig. Moilig means he flicks up. He gets the thing of his wife. Anish wusste die ganze Sache wegen Freude. Why?
You're asking a very good question. That's a very good question. Vos is the Bryce had to express this whole thing with a husband and a wife, and the Yerusha comes from the wife. Why didn't the Gemara discuss this? It's a much simpler case. The person Yashin, does he add a chaymish or not? And I don't know the answer to that. That's a very good question.
So it's
could be, but you can't make up a new drasha from a pasuk that the Gemara doesn't say and Rashi doesn't say. I hear your kasha. I hear. Okay.
I should
I
see
want
by
to look this up more. I want to look this up to get
Ich mir
more
master
clarity.
in the Bible, the Meister will do.
Okay, so let's see the Gemara back. Tana the Gemara says, Yoytze b'shein v'ayin. How does an Evet Knani go free? If the Adain knocks out his tooth, or knocks out his eye, or any other Roshei Evarim, She'enim Choshim, any other Roshei Evarim that don't grow back. Now the Roshei Evarim we're soon going to see, the Gemara is going to list them off, are the 10 fingers and the 10 toes, that's 20. Then you have 2 ears, which would be 22. Then we have the Rosh Hakviyah, which would be 23, and the nose, which would be 24. Okay, so let's see the Gemara. I understand why, if the Shein V'ayin gets knocked out, Ksivi, that's mafurish in the pasuk. The pasuk says one after the other. If he knocks out an eye, David lachavshi yishalchenu, and if he knocks out a tooth, lachavshi yishalchenu. So that's why we know that the Eved goes free, because it says mafurish in the pasuk. Well, Roshei Evarim we know. How do we know the rest of the 24 Roshei Evarim? How do we know that they're also Evarim, that if they're knocked out by the Odin, the Eved goes free? Zoktamar dumya the Shein V'ayin. They're like Shein V'ayin. Ma Shein V'ayin mumen shebevel. First of all, they're a mumen that everybody could see. Ve'ein chayzim, and they don't grow back. Avkol, so to any other type of mumen that's a mumen shebegoli, if it's clearly visible on the outside of his body that something's missing. And ve'enim chayzim, these will not grow back. Therefore, they're all Roshei Evarim that if the other knocks off, it'll be a yitzia, the Eved goes free.
Why is Shen always, if it's a back tooth, the wisdom tooth, the same thing probably. Why is it called Shubakoli? The front teeth, the signs are.
Well, if someone opens his mouth, you could see if teeth are missing.
Not the back.
If he opens his mouth wide. I don't know. So Zok to Gemara, Tosha says something very important here, all at the bottom. Yoytze b'shein v'ayin. If it's Yoytze b'shein v'ayin, didn't our Mishnah list all the different ways in which an Eved Knani can himself? We said star, we had kesef. So how come the Mishnah didn't say shein v'ayin? So Tosha, the Tani Didan, the loy Tani lahu, mishum desover the tzorch kachicher. Shein v'ayin means, it doesn't mean that the Eved automatically goes free. It means if an Eved is Shein v'ayin gets knocked out, then the Adon is mechuyev to free him, but he's not automatically free. So therefore, it's not one of the things that frees the Eved. It's just a psak that he's mechuyev to free the Eved. So let's see the Gemara fight. How could you learn from Shein v'ayin to other Roshei Evarim that have similar traits? Why isn't Shein v'ayin shnei ksuvim abam ke'echad? Whenever the Torah says two halachas that one should have easily been able to have learned out of the other, it's a sign that the Torah is saying don't learn anything from this. Only take what's written in the Torah. So Shein v'ayin, we could have only said Shen, or we could have only said Ayin, and we would have been able to learn all other Evarim that are moments of Begola ben Chayfer. And since the Torah said both Shen and Ayin, we shouldn't be able to learn the whole Torah. Here we actually needed the Torah to mention Shein, and we needed the Torah to mention Ayin. Because of Rachman Shein, if the Torah only said Shein, Havamina, I would have thought, Afilu Shein the Cholov, even baby teeth. Let's turn on to the other base. Why is a baby tooth called Shein the Cholov? Rashi says, Shein to Yonakba, a Shein that a child would be nursing with, the Azad Lachlif, it's going to be swapped out going to Evet Khan. I would have thought even a baby tooth got knocked out, that Evet would go free. Because of Rahman Ayin, to tell you that it's only something that's not going to grow back. Because of Rahman Ayin, Havamina Ayin Shenivra, you would have thought the eye that was created with the person as the person is born, he already has an eye. That's the type of Even if it gets knocked out, the Eved goes free. I was ashamed, but I would have thought a tooth which only grows later, or adult teeth only come later on, maybe that wouldn't be an aver that frees an Eved. The Gemara, Shricha. Frag the Gemara, why don't we have a klal prat to klal? Ve'ema kiyake is klal. Shen v'ayin. In either pasuk it says shen or it says ayin prat, and they should be a klal u prat ein v'chlal elamasha prat. Shen v'ayin in midi achrin aloi. Whenever you have a prat and a klal, the rule is that the only thing included in the halacha are the pratim. Zok to Gemara, true, but we have another klal. L'chavshi yishalchenu is chazar v'kalal. So therefore we have a klal, pratu klal. And what is the halacha? How do we dash the klal, pratu klal? Yet adon alakena prat, ma prat mefurish mum shebagolui ve'enim chayzu. Just like the prat and the shen and the ayin are mum shebagolui and they don't go back. Akol mum shebagolui ve'enim chayzu. Anyone, any aver that creates a mum shebagolui if it's missing. It doesn't grow back, the Eved would go free. Gavaldik. Frag the Gemara, Ima prat mefurish mumen shebagoli, ubatom imelachtoi ve'inei chayzer. Avkol mumen shebagoli ve'inei chayzer ubatom imelachtoi. Batom imelachtoi Rashi teaches as if it's damaged, it will never ever be able to do its function. It will never be able to complete its function that it was supposed to do. Rashi's bottom nismis mirais shein mililois. If the eye is knocked out, it cannot see anymore. If a tooth is knocked out, it definitely cannot chew anymore. So that should also be one of the conditions. Alama Tanya, why is the halacha talash beziknoi v'dildul bayetzem? If someone yanked the beard of an Eved and it dislocated the jaw, and Rashi says once his jaw is dislocated, it's going to start rotting and it'll die and eventually won't be there at all. It says over there, Eved yaitze b'ham l'cheres. And Rashi tells us that a jaw has no function. Look at Rashi, it's a little bit difficult to understand why. Yaitze b'ham l'cheres, im etzem she'enei chayzer. If it's etzem she'enei chayzer, v'soifei li'iva ish v'lipol, it'll eventually dry out and fall off. Even though without a jaw, there's no problem. The jaw doesn't do anything. Even the begoli, since it's goli and it's chayzer, even though it's not needed. So the Art Scroll says it's not needed because a person, even though you cannot chew without a jaw, you can eat soft foods. But that's a little bit difficult to understand. I saw others say that it doesn't mean the whole jawbone was pulled out. It means part of the jawbone, but I don't understand what that means. But whatever it is, the Gemara is considering the jawbone a bone that is not bottom in malachtoi. It doesn't prevent someone from being able to do anything just because he doesn't have a jaw. So Zok Gemara,
like the chin.
Isn't the chin the part of the jawbone? It's one big bone. It goes from the back of your mouth all the way around. The Gemara is considering it that if we're referring to the right bone, if the Gemara is referring to the jawbone, the Gemara is saying it's not bottom melachta. You don't need it. So I'm not the way Rashi explains. I'm not sure why we don't need it. But it must be because a person could survive without it. But then a person could survive without a finger too. I'm not sure. So Zok to Gemara, l'chavshi yishachenu ribuya. You're right. You should be able. You should limit it only to a vorim. But since it says the extra ribuya l'chavshi yishachenu, it includes even things. It includes even things that are not bottle mimalachti. Who's Rashi? Einay loshen klal liyos nida in bechlal uprat el beriba umiyot veriba haklal. So since it says as the final klal lachav shishachenu, everybody agrees that this you don't dashen like a klal uprat, this you dashen like a ribui miyot veriba. Okay, zok to Gemara vayter. The iribuyahu, if it's ribuy made ribuy, and the only thing that it's referring to then, so that means anything that you knock out, it's a ribuy including everything. Well, then if that's the case, then afilu hikayu al yada v'tzamtza, even if the other hit the Eved on his hand, it causes the hand to shrivel up, paralyzed. But the Seifa Lachser, but it's going to eventually heal up. Nami, that should also free the Eved. There's Ribu HaKoil. Allah Matanya, why did we learn Hikoil Yoni v'tzamtza v'Seifa Lachser? Ein Eved yoytze b'ayim cheres. There an Eved wouldn't go free. Dr. Gemara, you know why we exclude something that's going to heal? Because in Cain, Shein v'ayin ma'ya hanin. The fact is, we do have the two miyutim of Shein v'ayin. We have to apply it somewhere, so we're going to apply it to exclude an injury that will heal up. For that injury, the Eved Knani will not go l'cheres. Gewaltig. Tan Rabbanan. B'chulam. In all of these cases, Eved yoytze behem l'cheres. An Eved goes free. But the tzarech getchicher. So maybe the dinei mominus was freed, but a getchicher is still required. And Rashi says three words, but very important words: latiroi bevas chayre. So it's mashma that the Rosh Evarim does to wife that he no longer owns her from or owns the Eved from a moministic perspective. So the Eved no longer has to do malacha for this other. But in order to be matter to do the Yeridea, the Ishav part of the freeing of the Eved, that will require to get shicher. And that is the sheet of Reb Shimon. The Eved goes completely free, it doesn't require any type of get shicher. Of course, our Mishnah, like Tosfos says, will go like Reb Shimon, who holds tzarech get shicher, and that's why it wasn't listed as one of the Yitziyos of another Knani in our Mishnah. And we have a whole bunch of couples that argued about this. And the Talmidei Chachamim who were Bekiyim and Halacha, near Divrei Rabbeinu Tarfon b'Shen V'ayin. By Shen V'ayin, it's mistaber to say that no get shicher is required at all. Why? Shatayra zichsaloi. The Torah was zoicha the Eved himself. The Torah frees him, so therefore he does not need to get shicher. But for Divrei Rabbi Akiva b'Sharevar. But by all the other Rosh Evarim, there we hold like Rabbi Akiva that a get will be required. About there, the reason why the Eved goes out with other Rosh Evarim is only a knas. Correct the more knasu, karoi kodashina. We just darshened it out of a klal prato klal or riboy mid riboy. So how could you suggest that this is only a knas derabanan? It's very much deraisa. Elahoylu medrash chacham. Since it's a medrash chacham, since it's not my first in the Torah, it's darshan from chacham. So first, let me share with you the most mechudishtik pshat in this Gemara, which is the Meiri. The Meiri says anything that you learn out of a klal prato klal is like it has a status of a din derabanan, not of a din deraisa. That's a very big chiddush. Rashi and Tosfos here don't say that. Rashi says, Rashi does not say. Okay, Rashi does not say what it means. Hoyel umedrash chachamim. Let's see if Moshe Rashi says it. No, Moshe Rashi doesn't say anything. So let's look at Tosfos.
We learned it a couple of weeks ago, or last week, about a big. This was a big thing. All the things that not a chitzak zayir shuve or whatever. All the. So let's see
Tosfos. So Tosfos is going to explain. Hoyel umedrash chachamim. Pirish Tosfos. Mishum hachi omar. B'shar dvarim tzorich get shicher. Since it's medrash chachamim, that's why you need to get shicher. In time of Tosfos, umar bekach. Hoylu medrash chachamim. Why is that a reason to say that it's not a regular deraisa? Valekama gufei Torah tluyim shein boin elamikoich. There's many basic halachas that are partial to be deraisas that we learn from a drasha. How could you say because you learned it from one of the rules? One of the Yud Gimel Midrash Hatorah and Dreshus Behem. How could you say that that's not Mamash Deraisa? Chay Nir LeBenetam that when it says derabanan, it doesn't mean that the Yitzia is derabanan. Avada the Yitzia is deraisa, and therefore the Eved is completely free and needs no get shichur at all. But getza in the they were only mechayev to Adon to give the Eved a get midrabanan. You know why? If an Eved is missing a shen v'ayin, everybody knows this Eved is free because the Adon knocked out a shen v'ayin. But what if he goes out free for one of the other Rosh Evarim that people don't know? People don't know the drushes of the Torah. So they're going to see the Eved walking around free. The Chashina and Shema Yimtenu B'Shuk v'Yoyim Elei Avdiyat. What are you going to do if the Adon meets this fellow in the Shuk, his former Eved, says, "You're my Eved still"? The Adon may not necessarily be a Talmid Chacham, and he might not even know. So he might, even though they force him to let the Eved free, he'll still call him my Eved. That's going to create a laws in the Shuk about this person that he's an Eved when he's really free. They were misaking that you have to give an Eved a get shichur. So if the Adon starts claiming you're still my Eved, the Eved can pull out the star and say, no, you freed me. So that's what it means there. Riva Pirish, the Vadai, Shen Va'ayin, the Chsiv, Behedja Bikra. Shen Va'ayin are Meforsh in the Pasuk that are releases for the Eved Knani. Va'alayu Ksiv, L'chavshi Yishalchen. It's on Shen Va'ayin where the Torah specifically writes, L'chavshi Yishalchenu, 2 words, Chavshi free Yishalchenu, you shall send them. The Mashma, Chavshi Mehikara. It's Mashma, even before the Yishalchenu, even before you might give him a get shichur, he'll be chavshi already. They were not going to learn v'shilcha from an isha that requires a get shichur. So too this Eved requires a get shichur because it says lachavshi. Chavshi means he's free without any other requirement. As the Gemara taught us, it says the extra word yalchenu at the end. Since the only way we know that these Rosh Evarim free and Eved is from the extra Yishalchenu, there it's subject to the clarification that we get from Get Isha that Shiluach means with a get. That's an interesting shot from the Riva, but we have 2 pshatim now. Either it's only with Rabbanan, or could be that even though the Torah says that the Eved Knai goes free, it goes free with the rules of Gittin, which require a get. Gewaltig. So let's see the Gemara weiter. Let's see the Gemara weiter. Tanir Rabbanan. He ko al einoi v'sama. He hit him on the eye and he blinded the eye. He didn't knock it out. Or on his ear, and the Eved lost his hearing. Eved yoytze behen l'cheres. The Eved also goes free. So even though it wasn't knocked out, but it stopped doing its job, so that's enough that the Eved can go free. Gewaltig. Look to Gemara weiter. What about if it's keneged oznai? Ve'ina shemeya. I'm sorry, what if it's neged einai ve'inei roya? Keneged oznai ve'ina shemeya. He didn't actually hit the eye. He made noise keneged the eye, or he made noise keneged the ear, and that caused that it should stop working. There ain't eved yoytze b'chayis. That wouldn't be yoytze l'chayis.
Isn't enough of an illusion mean that it's for now he doesn't see it, but it's going to heal?
No, because we already said that if something's going to heal, he definitely does not go free anyway.
But this illusion, summer means it's blind, it can't see anymore. Chosha means it's dead. Now he can't say, he can't see. That's why Taki doesn't go out the chaydas. Because for now, I don't know. You see,
from the Gemara, it'll become clear that that's not what the discussion is. Let's see Rashi, Keneged Einoi, Shehika B'Koisel. He made a loud noise on the wall, Viv Isai B'Koil, and he became afraid. He shocked Eved. The Einoi and that caused the Eved to either lose his sight or to lose his hearing. So let's see what the Gemara says. See what we're up to.
More down. Down. Here.
Tanurban, Chikal Elena, Visim al Lasnoi, Visim al Lasnoi, V'charsho, Evidis V'chers, Neged Ein Evin Yirak, Neged Ozim V'shmei, Ein Evidis V'chers. Amar Rav Shaman Rav Ashi. Remember, are you telling me the Kala Lav Klamu, the noise that he made, which caused the damage, that's not called that the Adon did it? Vatani Rami Bayacheskel. But we learned from Rami Bayacheskel, Tarnagol Shahoshit Roishoy La'aver Klis Chufis. A Tarnagol that put his head into a glass, the Takaboy, and he made noise, and that noise caused the Shavrai that the glass should break, Mishalom Nezek Shalem. He pays Nezek Shalem, and Rashi tells us, because it's called Tsurai Rois, it's the normal activity of a Tarnagol, and Sumchus holds that Tsurai Rois, which is going to be considered a regel, is Mechuyev Nezek Shalem. V'amar Rabbi Yosef Amar Beirav, Sus shetzana v'chamor shanar, a sus that made his noise, and the chamor made his noise. V'shavru kelim b'soich habayis, and that noise caused kelim to break. Again, that's regel, and therefore mishalman chati nezek. This is the same case, but this is not going according to Sumchus, who holds that by regel you pay nezek shalem. It's going according to Chachamim, who holds by regel you pay chati nezek. But whatever it is, you see clearly that an indirect damage is also a damage. Amalei, shiny Adam, a person is different. The Chivin, the Bardasu, Iu Mivis Nafshe. What caused the Eved to go deaf? Because he got shocked, he got afraid from the noise. Well, he's a independent thinking person, and he could have programmed himself not to suffer that shock. So we say that this isn't directly caused by the Adon. This is really caused because the person himself took it to heart, and that's what caused this damage. But a person really could program his mind not to be affected by sudden noises. There are certain Gedolim, when they were sitting and learning, they wouldn't have even heard the noise. But a behema doesn't have that ability. So therefore, a behema who does that, that's going to be, or a keli who does that, a keli that breaks because of the noise, that's considered that the animal broke it. But a person, it's not considered like this was done to him. He's the one who brought it upon himself. Can you tell me, like we learned? If someone makes a noise near his chaver and that causes him to get damaged, in fact, you'll be part of Medina Adam. So you see, it's not a direct damage. Ketat, an example. Talk about oznoi v'charshoy, potter. But a chazol v'talk about oznoi v'charshoy. But if you grabbed it and then you did that, chayiv, because that's already you inflicting that he didn't have the ability to avoid. Tanur Abanim. What would happen if he called Alena the chasa? He hit him on his eye, and the Eved wasn't blinded, but his vision deteriorated. Or al shinoi v'nadida, where he was hit on his tooth and the tooth became loose. What would be the halacha? Im yochel ishtamish behen achshav, if the Eved can still use his eye, although not to the same degree that he was able to use it until now, but he can still use his eye, or he can still use his tooth. Ein Eved yochel in the chayes. But if it's not usable anymore, Eved yochel in the chayes. We have another brisa, and clearly what the brisa we just learned is teaching us that if an eye or a tooth becomes unusable, that's a reason why you're yochel l'cheres. We're going to have another brisa that's going to tell us the same thing from a different perspective. What if his eye was already weakened, v'sama, and all the Adam did was he completed the job and he blinded him, or shina in nududa of a pillow? Then im yachalish tamish ben kfar, if the Eved was able to use his shen or his ayin prior to this injury, then Eved yochel ben l'cheres. If the other knocks it out, the Eved will go l'cheres, because his usable aver became unusable. We need both these halachas. If we only knew the first halacha, where he started off with a fresh eye, and now he can't use it anymore, I would have said mishum to make kar in the higher pari, if you start from a perfectly healthy eye, and now boom, it's not healthy anymore, that's a reason that the Eved should go free. Even before the injury that the Adon inflicted on the Eved couldn't see so well. Maybe we'll say that's not a yitzia for an Eved. If we only had the second case, I would have said Mishum the Sami Lagamri, because at the end of the day, the Adam did damage because he made the person completely blind. But in the earlier case, where although his eye is not so good, he can barely see, but he's not completely blind, you would have thought that it's not a tzif forever tzrich. What if the Adon was a dentist? Or I'm sorry, a dentist, or he was some type of makeup artist, the face. And the Evet told his Adon, please do some eyeshadow for me. And the doctor made a mistake and caused the blindness. So the doctor was not trying to damage the Evet. The doctor was trying to do something good to the Evet. The Evet wanted it, but something
plastic surgery.
Yeah, okay. Or lachter l'shinoi v'pila. He wanted him to clean his tooth out, and then he ended up knocking it out. Sichek ba'adoin v'yoytze. He could say, "Too bad, Mr. Adon. I know you're trying to do me a favor. Too bad, I get to go free." V'yoytze l'cheres. V'shichasa. V'shichasa means he did damage. Until there's a kavana to do damage, it's not considered enough of a damage that the Eved goes free. For Rabbanan, high b'shichsa my avdulay. The Rabbanan also have the pasuk b'shichsa, but yet they say anyway the Eved goes free. Tomorrow, there was a doctor helping his shivcha give birth, and he stuck his hand in to pull out the baby. V'sima uber shibameya, and he can't see anything inside, and he blinded the child. Potter there, the other will be potter from freeing her. My time, what is the reason? Now this is a higher level, because in the previous case, the Adon was working on the tooth. The Adon was aiming for the tooth. The Adon was aiming for the eye. No, he didn't want to do bad, it did good. In the case of the doctor, he's sticking his hand in to pull the baby out. He doesn't know what he's feeling. He doesn't know what he's touching, so he wasn't even aiming for the eye. There, everybody agrees that the Eved wouldn't go for free. So how is Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel going to know that even with such a small kavanah, you go free? So he knows it from Veshichas. I'm sorry, how does it you don't go free? Vidach mi Veshichas Shichsa Nafka. It's if it says an extra vav to tell us this extra law. So therefore we have this machlokes. Everybody agrees if it was a doctor who blinded an Uber, there he doesn't go free because he didn't do it b'dafka. The question is, what if he did it? What if he was aiming for the eye, but he didn't want to do damage? There's a machlokes if the Eved goes free.
It's not the vav, it's the hey by the M.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Okay, you're right. It's the hayat, and I apologize. That's correct. I'm sorry. What if his eye was already blind, but now he knocked the eye out? So the Eved had an eye that was not operable, but now it's totally knocked out. Eved goes l'cheres. My time at mechusar ever. It makes him into a mechusar ever, and you see a mechusar ever is worse than an inoperable ever, because the Tana Tuna we looked at Brisa, Tamus v'zachrus b'behem. The halacha is that when it comes to karbonis, only a behema has to be tam and not a balmum, and only a behema has to be a male, not a female. But then Tamus v'zachrus b'oifos. By oifos, it doesn't matter if it's a male or a female, and it doesn't matter if the oif has a mum. Yochel yof shekapa nikteragla nechteina. You might think even if the bird was missing an aver, that it would still be kosher for a carbon. Only some birds are good, because if an oif is missing an aver, that's worse. So you see clearly that there's a distinction and a deterioration between an aver that's damaged and missing completely. So therefore, even an aver who had a blind eye, if it got knocked out completely, that's considered enough of a damage for which the aver would go free. Okay, Gavaltik, let's stop over here. And the Mishem will be tomorrow. I'm going to try to look up more today to understand Chaim's Kasha. Why did the Brisa pick a case where it was the Yerusha that came through the wife, if the whole word is that Meiser, Sheni is Mama Gavayu, and you don't yarshin it, then it could have even been a case where the person yarshin it from his father. So I want to see if I can get shot in there.
I want to, through Lewis is sitting Shiva today here in Toronto. Tomorrow is the afternoon is going somewhere, so whoever's here and doesn't know.
Actually, it's tomorrow. I think he's coming to Lakewood, so tomorrow, remind me again.
Today he's davening mincha at 2:00 today. He's leaving today.
But he's having shachris also, I know.
Yeah, he's davening shach